There we go.
Boom. Hey, folks. Welcome to the BAMF podcast. We are coming to you live on Facebook and YouTube, but not on Twitter because we have to have a premium account on Twitter to broadcast there. And I'll be, gosh darn, if I'm going to give Elon $7 a month. So forgive me. We're no longer on Twitter.
You mean X?
It's Twitter.
I know so few people who call it X.
X Media, the social media site, maybe?
Twitter?
I mean, X is an EX hyphen social media site.
Twitterx? Can we combine them somehow?
Hey, let's play our theme song. I wish everyone could see Jacob Black. Oh, there he is, voguing for public consumption. And that lovely musical montage you just witnessed indicates that you are watching a high-quality podcast, ladies and gentlemen. High production value, the finest farm-to-table geeky conversation, domestically produced for your podcast listening pleasure.
Artisanal.
So, artisanal, bespoke.
And all those other words.
That's right. Daddy's got to earn. Let's throw all the buzzwords at it.
Daddy's got to earn. It's, yeah. No AI-generated content. This is all people talking. There's no robots involved. So,
but if I could have a virtual presence, I would. Just saying.
That could be. Well, you got puppets, right?
What's that?
You got puppets, right? You could just crouch down out of frame and be like, yeah. Exactly. Chuck's a book. That's his physical avatar. So. Alrighty. So today we're talking about sci-fi RPGs, and God damn it, with how popular Star Wars was, how come sci-fi doesn't rule the RPG field? Chuck, you're an expert. Go ahead, Darrin. You're an expert too.
Why doesn't
because it wasn't
sci-fi
first?
Rule? I don't have a good answer to that question, although I have been declared an expert. I don't think it's just because D&D was first. I think it's because fantasy's just simpler. Like, no one's like, well, I'm just going to call them on my cell phone. I'm just going to buy a plane ticket. What do you mean I can't buy a plane ticket? Don't I have a credit card? So I just think it simplifies things. Like if you think about basic D&D, for example, like the Red Box, they didn't even let you go outside. They were like, you're in a dungeon. That's what you do. You go into dungeons, and there's these 38 monsters, and you kill them in the dungeon. Outside, what's that? So, you can really distill it down and still get a very playable game. Whereas, space is big. It's complicated.
Yeah, they didn't get into going outside until the Blue Box came out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they introduced taverns.
I think on top of that, when you're talking about fantasy, most people, when they think of fantasy, they think of that generic medieval Lord of the Rings style fantasy. And that is very much what the popular ideal is.
Yeah,
when it comes to science fiction, you have to ask, what kind of science fiction are we dealing with?
There's no
are we Star Trek
finish.
science fiction? Are we Star Wars science fiction?
That's
Are we
fantasy.
are we the slightly just in the future cyberpunk science fiction? Are we modern day science fiction as presented from like the old 50s series where it's all analogs for communism and racism? So
well, I was just being off the cuff, but you guys had some thoughtful answers to that. That's pretty cool. I wanted to mention this. I brought it up before the show, but our friends at Modiphius, hey Chris Birch, love to have you back on sometime. They just got the license, and licensed RPGs are huge now, right? They are doing Space 1999 role-playing game, and I used to love watching the show with my dad 45 years ago, and I was really psyched to see it. I'm going to buy this book. I will never play this game. I doubt I can talk anyone else into playing it who I know, but just for the map of Moonbase Alpha, I'll probably spend the 40, $50 to get this book and keep it on my shelf and never ever play it. But nostalgia's a motivator, and I'm a sucker. So,
hey, I'm right with you on buying certain books that I know I'm never going to play. I bought the Lower Decks Star Trek source book from Modiphius. I'm never going to play Star Trek, but I love Lower Decks so much. I just wanted to read and absorb the material.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Lower Decks. It's a bummer to see it go, and I was like, it got 4 or 5 seasons, whatever it got. But yeah. And the thing is, this is what pisses me off about the RPG market. I will think about these stupid chuckleheads who are out there buying licensed property RPGs they're never going to play just because they want to support the RPG. So they're buying My Little Pony or whatever the fuck. And I do the same goddamn thing. So I shouldn't complain. But, you know, there we are.
I think we've all done it, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey, speaking of sci-fi RPGs, Mr. Darrin Drader, you have a new military. Speaking of subgenres of science fiction, you have a new military sci-fi game called, let me get this right, Omegaforce Shadowhawks.
Yes.
And I got a tiny URL made up so I can say it on the air easily because I am a consummate professional. tinyurl.com/Omegaforce Shadow. You can go check out Darrin's book right now. It is very affordable. It's $14.99 on DriveThruRPG right now. And Darrin, tell us about this book.
Let's see what's to tell. So it's the genre is military adventure. The goal was as rules light as possible and not D20. So it is percentile based. Unlike most percentile based games, it is ascending instead of descending. In other words, your goal is not to roll under a number, but actually to roll over a number. And then it is classless, it is levelless, and it is raceless. So basically, because this is military RPG, it takes place on Earth. Everybody's a human, except for the AI androids. But we don't, I didn't need to make up a separate thing for them. And that's pretty much it. You know, when you get experience points, you decide how you want to allocate those points as to whether you want to increase your attributes, your skills, or your special abilities. And you decide your course based on what you pick, and that's it. So that's it in a nutshell.
I was on mute. Well, tell me, military sci-fi, that's a big subgenre. That can be the Battlestar Galactica reboot. That can be Larry Niven's novels. That can be David Drake's novels. That can be Starship Troopers, either the Worthy movie, which are drastically different. What's the vibe you're going for on Shadowhawks?
Well, as the cover says, it's military adventure of 2075, meaning that it's near future. To put this another way, the world really hasn't changed that much. We're 20 years past World War III. So there's been some realignment in terms of national borders and, who's the big deal. But you know what? This is a patriotic game that was released on July 4th. So America's still on top, damn it.
You could have just said G.I. Joe. I would have gotten it.
Hell yeah, brother.
I'm trying not to say G.I. Joe.
Okay, all right. I don't want to say G.I. Joe for the rest of the show, okay? No one mentioned any snakes also for the rest of the show. No copperheads, no...
The other day I was bitten, but never mind.
Was it a venomous snake that bit you?
No.
Oh, okay. So, Darrin, do you have a reptile-themed villain group in this book?
It is not reptile-themed.
Okay.
They are called the Red Steel Legion, and they are an international terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. They are bent on conquering the world, subjecting all of humanity because they know the best way to run things, and it's led by a psychopath super billionaire who may or may not be somewhat similar to somebody who now owns Twitter, or shall we say X.
Oh, you mean Tony Stark? Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, Tony Stark.
R.I.P. Oh, sorry, that was maybe reaching for that one. All right, well, cool. So the book's out. Let me ask you: do we have Adventures support coming out? What's next up for?
There's some stuff coming out. So one of the things I treated very lightly in this book is traps. So the first thing that's coming out is going to be a book full of traps. Short book. It's probably only going to be $2 or $3. And then, hey now.
We're not supposed to be making these comparisons.
Hey now.
Not supposed to be making the comparisons.
There is going to be an adventure. Originally, the plan was to actually put an adventure together and have it be part of the book. But when I decided, I've been working on this thing since last year. And when I decided, okay, I've got enough time before the 4th of July to get this out, but I don't have time to write an adventure. I was like, okay, the adventure's going to have to get cut. So I'm going to write an adventure. And for anybody who has bought the book, they're going to get a coupon to get the adventure for free on drive-through. For everybody else, they can pay the $2 or $3, whatever I end up charging for it.
All right, that makes sense. Chuck, you have read this book.
I have, and I like it quite a bit. I have to say, so of course, being me, I'm going to start with the guns. I have been called the gun porn guy, dismissively, but I was honored by that. So I was a bit surprised, given the vibe of the book, that guns are dangerous, if I'm understanding the rules correctly.
They're dangerous, yeah.
I mean, like dangerous. So you can have 50 hit points. Armor is 50 for the best armor.
Yep.
So if I'm grokking, the armor is extra hit points, or is it actually damage reduction?
So armor is extra hit points.
Okay.
When they're gone, they're gone. You need new armor.
Yeah. So a shotgun could potentially take down the hardiest, most fully kitted Shadowhawk in 3 hits. I mean, I dig it, but I think it gives the game a certain grittiness that I'm into. Like, this is really not a G.I. Joe game in a lot of ways. Like, dudes are gonna die.
Yeah, I would expect so. I mean, so you play D&D, and the DM's got the DM's guide, and the DM guide says, okay, in order to make a balanced encounter, you need to have X number of hit points worth of monsters, and you kind of go by that, and easy, medium, hard. This game, the GM has to have a little bit more of a handle on the strength of the player characters and what they're throwing against them. And if they don't have that solid of a handle on it, they could easily overwhelm the player characters. That's kind of the trade-off in the freedom to do whatever you want with your character, is that it's impossible to balance. To create any kind of an artificial balance. It's more like the GM just has to really know what they're doing, and that's it.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a strength. It was a bit surprising to me, is the reason that my brain wants to go there first, because, like I say, I like everyone picked up the Team America vibes from this and was like, okay, so 4 good guys are going to walk into a room with like 50 laser rifle wielding bad guys, and everything's going to be okay. But I don't think that would be the case in this game.
Well, I mean, potentially not. And there are some optional rules in the back of the book. One of which is let me take a look at it. I've got my print copy here. See, it just came in. It is the henchman rules. which
Okay.
if you've played 4th edition D&D, I'm sure you're familiar with them. 1 shot, they're dead. Or 2 shots, they're dead. However you
God
want
damn
to
it,
set.
Mike.
Up to 4, really.
Right.
So if you want to do that, encounter where you walk into like a room with 50 dudes with you guys, sure, you can do that.
Right.
Especially if you've got automatic weapons. Automatic weapons, you can target up to 6 squares that are adjacent to one another. So one burst, you can take out 6 guys. And that's just 1 shot.
Right.
So you can do that, but realistically, what you're going to be taking, what you're going to be fighting most of the time is going to be, the regular infantry or that type of thing. And I made it a little bit weak intentionally, but if you're starting with new characters, it might be a little bit of a challenge to find, that happy line to walk as far as enemies of the right power to throw against your player characters.
Yeah, so it would be like how in the first 2 years of G.I. Joe, things were pretty actually kind of realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 5 years in, Snake Eyes is just like killing like 800 guys with his bare hands.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I remember that issue.
Yeah, it's power creep. Yeah, and I mean, obviously the tried and true way to handle that would be if they just can't hit anything, like Stormtrooper style, right? I guess it doesn't matter how much the guns do if they're never going to hit.
Right. And keep in mind, I mean, there's things that you can do to make your guy a little bit, able to survive a little bit better, such as taking the ability that gives them, what's it called? Drawing a blank on my own game. That's sad, isn't it? Static defense.
Okay.
There's a special ability that gives you static defense. Static defense counts as a penalty against the attack roll. So in a way that works kind of like armor class. So if you want to buy that special ability, you're harder to hit. You wear armor that gives you bonus hit points. There's an optional rule in the back of the book for an alternate way of doing armor, which is that rather than just being hit points that go away, instead you get hit, you roll a die, you reduce that from the amount of damage. So if you'd rather run, as a GM, if you're more comfortable with it, working that way, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the game, I mean, I really liked it. Another strength that it has is its simplicity, which I think would make, that just makes house rules easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to worry about, well, there's 8,000 moving parts. Like what else am I messing up if I change a rule, right?
Yep. Yeah, and as far as that goes, in a lot of cases, I was kind of, like as far as movement goes and, the way that combat goes, I'm like, 5th edition D&D really does work pretty smoothly in those ways. So there's no reason why I wouldn't emulate those rules. Right. And so that's why I credit, the 5th edition SRD as released to Creative Commons in the beginning of the book. So, so I'm not just stealing ideas and throwing them in here,
Right. You're stealing ideas, properly crediting them and throwing them in. It's way
exactly.
different. Yeah.
Exactly.
100%. It's supposed to work.
Yes.
It's called inspiration and homage.
Yeah, my whole RPG career is largely inspiration and homage. So
everyone's.
Well, I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit here. 3rd edition, I liked 3.5. I liked it because of the options it gave you, but I didn't like how much it slowed combat down. Combat really dragged in 3rd edition. And then 4th edition came out and I didn't like it, so I went to Pathfinder. And after playing Pathfinder for a few years, it was still the same grind as 3rd edition was. And so it's at one point I sat down and I was like, okay, if I was going to revamp 3.5 / Pathfinder, how would I do it in order to make it the game I want to play?
Mhm.
And what I came up with was remarkably similar to 5th edition, except I wasn't smart enough to come up with advantage, disadvantage.
Yeah.
Other than that, condensing the math, making, de-emphasizing feats and making them smoother to implement, things like that. That's all there,
Yeah.
So given the fact that I like that system for its simplicity and for the fact that it's easy to run, I think it makes sense I'd want to use a lot of that in a game that I would create on my own.
I mean, yeah, go with what works, right? I mean,
Yep.
there's only, everything is a remix of a remix anyway, and there's really only so many ways to skin a cat. I believe William Shakespeare said that. So,
Possibly Hemingway. Maybe they both said it. Cool. So what's next for you, Darrin? Are we're going to be promoting this line for the next couple of years, or do you have other projects that are looking on the back burners?
Well, okay. So I'm about to embark on a very large freelance job, which I cannot discuss. And so when I do things like this, they have to fit in between the freelance, because that's how I pay my bills. So you're going to see some short support products for Shadowhawks. By the way, if you don't want to say Omegaforce Shadowhawks, just call it Shadowhawks. The Omegaforce got in there for marketing purposes. If you can understand that. So it's going to be stuff I can kind of work on the side. So we're talking short support products, but the core system, the D100 Destiny system, I'm going to actually take that and adapt it to the post-apocalyptic genre, and probably the space opera genre, and it's going to be kind of my house system in the same way that like Survive This is for bloat games. And so the idea is to have kind of a lot of kind of niche games that are built on this system.
You just dropped a hint, didn't you? You're working for Bloat Games, aren't you?
No, not exactly. I believe I did a project for you, and you're partnering with Bloat Games.
We are
on that project, kickstarting it.
Yeah, we got in a tree house. We cut our thumbs with a knife and pressed them together. So we are definitely partnered up. But so that's cool. You can't give us any hints, can you? There's lawyers involved.
You know what? Even if I gave you hints, you wouldn't know.
We're three very smart men. We might be able to figure it out, Especially
you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to.
There are so many companies out there. Who can say?
Okay, here's what I can tell you. It's not one of the usual players, and that's it.
You're working for Evil Genius. No? Okay.
Nope.
Okay, I'll stop guessing, because if I get it right, it'll be really awkward. So you're working for Modiphius, aren't you, in Space X99? You were just playing dumb earlier, weren't you? So, all right. Not one of the usual players. Well, that's interesting, because when will we find out, Darrin? When will this be public knowledge?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay. All right.
All I know is I start on it next week, and it's going to be my life for about 3 months. And then after that, I probably won't hear anything until it's out. So
any company with any sense at all, the last person that they're going to share the marketing plan with is the writer.
That's true.
Let's be honest. Let's speak of things that are true.
What? You're going to kickstart this? I think I deserve a little more money.
Exactly. That's like when all the Fallout voice actors were like, we didn't know this game was big, because Bethesda was like, we're just this little company. We're making this little game.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pay you in sandwiches. It'll be fun, guys. Come on. Yeah. A friend of the podcast, Christopher McLaughlin, he wrote the history of Sentinel Comics for Greater Than Games. And Sentinel's the multiverse, if you're into card games, is fucking huge. But we've had shows talking about that book, because I thought it was coming out like now. And oh boy, years have come and gone. That book is not out yet. Sometime
it'll be done when it's ready. That's when it'll be out. Yeah.
Well,
What's this Friday?
This Friday, next Friday, maybe Saturday. I don't know.
Or 2038.
Yeah. Thing about gaming companies is even big ones about, unless it's like Paizo or Wizards, it's probably like 5 or 6 guys and a bunch of freelancers and not enough people handling logistics and technical details and marketing. So everything takes a very long time. So yeah, I kind of want to come out. Jacob, you got quiet. Say something.
Something. I've had nothing to add to the conversation. I mean, this is. I apologize.
I've been waiting for you to weigh in on the necessity of having a Shadowhawks crossover with transforming robots.
Well, there will always be that necessity, yes, but I'm not one to presume upon entering alien robots that turn into other things into another person's design. I think Omegaforce can easily stand on its own, just as the things that inspired it are able to stand on their own. So it is easily customizable for such things. I am certain.
As all things are.
Because simple systems are the easiest to modify for happy home brewers like the rest of us are.
Hey, you know what? You don't even have to be a happy home brewer. The reason I put a D100 Destiny on here, it's a system. It's licensed under the orc. If you want to take the core system and make it into whatever and release it for money, more power to you. Go for it.
Can I get a compatible with Shadowhawks logo made up? If I were to put out hypothetically a book about swamp-based mercenaries, I would want to be able to say, or transforming robots who turn into vehicles or buildings.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: transforming robots has never been my shtick, so I will not be the one to make that game.
If I wanted to, put out a book about the modern military applications of ninjutsu.
Why are there so many freaking ninja in those things?
It limits.
Seriously, the 80s just full of ninja as a military position, and that we have entire special divisions of special forces that are better trained than ninja.
What the hell are we talking about right now? I don't even know whose podcast I stumbled into. Ninjas are rad. That's why.
Exactly.
That's why.
Ninja's got the cool factor.
Okay, if a SEAL team went up against a team of ninja, I'm voting for the SEAL team.
But SEALs are getting smoked. I'm sorry, whatever. In the first place, they won't be able to hit anything. There's going to be like smoke bombs and pepper grenades everywhere.
That's right.
SEALs can't deal with that. Also, the 9 signs are going to get involved. The Kuji-Kiri.
I wish Walt was on here. He would have opinions, but no, that's fair enough. But I mean,
G.I. Joe, on the original file card for Snake Eyes, listed his military occupation as Ninja Commando. Okay, that's a real franchise right there. That's true vision.
Yeah, but tell me, what is a commando?
A less cool ninja?
I have asked so many people who are into military things, what is a commando? And I can never get a good answer.
Well, okay, so the right answer is a British special warfare team from World War II, and then about 80 years of people taking their name in vain. So, I mean, that's the actual answer. As someone who was raised by a commando who hated when anyone else called themselves commandos. That is the answer that is drilled into my brain.
Now, see, I would just point people to the Commando movie with Schwarzenegger in it and call it good. It's a tough guy with a gun who goes out and does stuff.
I would just point people to this $99 men's commando sweater in the Henley style from LL Bean, available right now.
And the other thing I have to ask, considering the slang that commando is for, does that mean they're wearing anything under the gi?
You're referring to going commando.
No. Yeah. Look, we all know. So commandos are tier 1 operators. Chuck, actual. I'm going to break out more of my Oscar Mike faux Call of Duty military lingo here for you. They're tier 1 operators, Jacob. And if you don't know what that is, educate yourself.
Just watch Generation Kill. You'll get a lot of lingo in there real fast. Although most of the lingo I can think of is actually pretty vulgar.
I'm Oscar Mike to your location right now.
All right. tinyurl.com/Omegaforce Shadow. Pick up Darrin's book now. It looks like a bunch of fun. Darrin, last words.
Last words. Get it. It's awesome. If I do say so myself. And if you don't believe me, just ask Chuck.
I second everything that has been said except for the ninja slander earlier. Other than that, I support everything.
Jacob, closing thoughts.
If you enjoy this content, please support the BAMF Podcast Patreon.
We do have a Patreon. We have a Ko-fi too. No one ever supports it, but you should. Feel bad if you don't. So
yeah, I've got a Ko-fi and no one has ever given me money on it. I've had it for like a year.
You need to pin that link more, man.
$1 from Ko-fi.
Yeah, you do like Owen does and throw that link out there a lot. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for tonight, folks. Thanks for checking out the BAMF podcast. Darrin, Chuck, Jacob, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Fun time as always.
Thanks for having me on.
And we will catch you all next time on the BAMF podcast. BAMF!